Pathways, launched in 2018 and finally replaced the traditional education program. And it replaced it completely by 2020. Since then, we've actually seen four iterations of the program. Version 1.0 launched with our regular 10 paths. Version 2.0 introduced an 11th path, engaging humor, which, funny enough, no pun intended, happened to be my first completion. And then version 3.0 released a second level 1, which required the VPs of education to juggle both old and new level 1s, leading to inevitable confusion. A course correction was long overdue. We all remember the struggles of navigating the old pathway system. Sections within sections, getting lost between pages. It was like an unmarked trail. A simpler system was essential to keeping members engaged. But now, with version 4.0, I believe we've finally pointed the compass in the right direction. If everyone wants to just show me a quick Zoom reaction or turn on your camera and raise your hand, how many of you have ever gone on a real hike, like a long one by choice? Now, have you ever started that hike without knowing your destination, with no real plan to get anywhere? You see, that's not really a hike. That's just getting lost. And just like hiking, if you're navigating a program like Pathways, you need a clear roadmap. So today I'll walk you through three key elements. First, login and navigation, the basics. We'll go through that one pretty quick. Think of this as making sure you're on the right trail and heading in the right direction. Next will be the path itself, because once you've got your GPS locked in, it's time to go. And I'll show you the new features of this learning management system. For those that might be wondering, what's a learning management system? Well, it's a way to organize educational materials in an easy to use format. Well, ideally. Let's just say past versions of Pathways didn't exactly make it easy, and many Toastmasters got lost before they could even start. My aim is to help you avoid that. And then finally, for our club executives, we'll take a little detour into Basecamp Manager. If you haven't explored it yet, you're in for a sneak peek. Plus, I'll share some tips and tricks you might not yet know. So lace up your boots and take a walk with me. We're taking a journey through Pathways. As soon as my computer wants to cooperate. There we go. Perfect. So we start with login and navigation. To begin, of course, we need to log in. We wouldn't start a hike without checking the trailhead, right? And the same goes for Pathways. Head to www.toastmasters.org, the hub for everything Toastmasters. And at the top of the page, we'll find a login link. You click it and enter our email and password and hit login. It's that simple. Now, once we're in, we'll land on our profile page. Now, you may not be greeted by the same devilishly handsome face you see here, but you should see something similar. And here's one of our first improvements. Go to Basecamp is front and center. And previously, we had to pick whether we were entering as a mentor or a manager, which was quite frankly an unnecessary step. If we chose the wrong one, we had to back out completely and start over. Frustrating, right? Luckily, that's now a thing of the past. With one click, we're in. No extra decisions, no backtracking, just straight to what we need. Once we're in Basecamp proper, we can see there are four tabs along the top: Paths and Learning, Achievements, Feedback, and finally Resources. As we go along, we'll be taking a little trip through each of those. But our first important thing to note are our active Paths and Learning projects. These are the learning materials we currently have on the go, materials that we have signed up and registered for, and they can include paths, mentor or club coaching programs, path resources, etc. They're all there, quick and easy to use. And additional materials are, of course, available as you pan down the page, including the paths we've completed. Nice, quick, easy to get through, all from the main page. The second tab is where we find achievements, all tied to the Pathways 4.0 program, as you might hear me call it. However, if you're still on a legacy path, which is one of the 5 that's eventually set to be phased out, you won't see much of what you're going to see today. Instead, you'll get a much different view based on the original Pathways 3.0 system. Since this guide focuses on Pathways 4.0, I won't be covering legacy paths, but if you need help, there are still some old guideposts out there on the internet. Inside the Achievements tab, you'll see a collection of badges. Now, these badges, some will be colored, and those are the ones you've earned. Others will be grayed out, and they're still waiting to be achieved. Clicking on any colored badge gives you the option to share it. You can post it on social media, share across different profiles, or copy the URL to use somewhere else. It's a quick and easy way to showcase your achievements. It's perfect for a LinkedIn profile or even a corporate email signature, especially if your corporate club or company itself values the Toastmasters brand. The other element in achievements is farther down the page where we find certificates. We can click and pull up any of our certificates of proficiency, allowing us to print, download, and share them in any way we want. And I'll show you a little trick regarding those later. And again, further down the page, we also have the speech log. Now, if you're new to the new Pathways program and you're not using the speech log, I'm going to urge you to do so. The speech log is a great way to track so many things: our speech type, our club, our evaluator, which we'll talk a little bit more later, and the date. To edit any entry, simply click the pencil icon along the side and it brings up a quick edit window. It's all quite self-explanatory if you have ever filled out a web page form before. First, the speech title goes right in the box. And then for the date, click the calendar icon and a pop-up window comes along and we select accordingly. Now, regarding club selection, if we're part of multiple clubs, we can choose which club we're giving a speech at. This impacts the next step, as it only allows us to select evaluators from that specific club. Personally, I think this is a bit of a limitation and an oversight, as it narrows our evaluator options. It'd be great if the evaluator selection were searchable across Toastmasters, especially since we have many visiting Toastmasters so willing to evaluate. If you agree with me, let's talk afterwards. We could start a writing campaign to Toastmasters International and push for this change, as it could encourage more club interaction and cooperation. But if necessary, we can still manually add an evaluator later. I'll touch on that shortly. And of course, if we have chosen an evaluator, we should now choose our evaluation resource. Whichever path we're doing, whichever project we're doing, we can choose that from here, and they're all listed. And in the final option, the request box, we can enter anything we'd like the evaluator to focus on. Want them to address vocal variety or body gestures? Whatever you want to be highlighted can go here. And as a workaround to the earlier mentioned limitation, you can also enter an out-of-club evaluator here. While it won't offer some of the more advanced features we'll discuss later, it's useful for clarification and your own record keeping. Next, we can choose either save or save and email. If we select save and email, the chosen evaluator will receive an email copy of the request, provided they've been selected from the dropdown and not just entered in the request box. Keep in mind, if someone has blocked Toastmasters International emails, they'll need to check their profile and unblock them, or these requests won't be delivered. Now, our third tab is feedback, which I've been using extensively as our club president. And I'd recommend that all executives, committee members, and any Toastmasters get familiar with this great tool. To demonstrate, if we click Give Feedback, we'll go through a similar form as before, choosing Club first, and then choosing Members. And then here we have checkable boxes that let us give feedback to multiple members at once. For example, if you have a club membership drive committee and they did an outstanding job, and we found their work to be innovative, for example, we can select each member, provide feedback, and click that badge and send it to all of them at once. As well, below, we can send feedback directly to a role taker. For example, if someone did a great job as an odd counter, we can send them a badge or another form of recognition outside of the usual club meeting. That extra bit of recognition can be a great motivator, boosting member improvement, engagement, and reinforcing a stronger commitment to the club's atmosphere and culture. And to make this even more powerful, we have the option for visibility. If we choose visible to all club members, it posts it to the recipient's profile, which we'll touch on a bit later, and everyone in the club can see their accolades. For something more personal, we can select visible to selected members only, ensuring it's sent privately just to them. And of course, naturally, if we can give feedback, we also have the option to request feedback. Requesting feedback brings up the same window as before, but now we choose who we want feedback from. If we've done something and want another member of executive to evaluate it, we can ask, how did I do? We can see an example of that on this screen where a member has asked for feedback. And we can view all of our requests by using the drop-down menu at the top and selecting the request header. I think this is a great tool. In a mostly virtual environment, it allows us to engage with members and the club outside of regular meetings. It's a really handy feature. And of course, what is feedback without actual formal evaluations? We can see here we have the options for evaluators and speakers. If we're the evaluator and click the paper and pencil icon, a form pops up where we can complete a digital evaluation right here. For those who prefer digital over paper and want to log evaluations into the Pathways portal, this is a great option. It works similarly to other forms in the system. Select the speech title, the club, etc. As a speaker, we can also select this paper and network icon, bringing up another way to get that evaluation form in your evaluator's hands. Same principle, similar setup. The digital evaluation forms are also all available along the bottom, using the same choices as previous. As well, any received evaluations show up at the very bottom of the page here. It's easy to get to all feedback that you need to work with for effective evaluations. And this will look familiar to most of us as it bears similarity to our existing forms. This is the digital evaluation form that pops up, and all the same principles apply. Everything we're used to, general comments, bullet points, and feedback is here. The difference is it's now saved and logged in the system, making it easily accessible for members later. And also, you can do this on mobile. It's a great resource, and while we've seen many changes, like moving from old manuals to the new Pathways programs, and now in its fourth iteration, it can be hard to fully buy in when we're constantly wondering, when will something change again? That said, I'm confident that this learning management system is nearing the end of its development. There might be a few tweaks, like the one I mentioned earlier about possibly having more evaluators selectable, but definitely get comfortable with this navigation and process. And resources is our final tab in the row. The resources section is similar to our previous system of looking them up on Toastmasters International. Here we see selections including filters, categories, and language options. And as expected, the results will populate at the bottom. This is pretty straightforward as we're just searching a database of documents. And then, of course, there's the My Documents tab. This option was available in the old Basecamp, and hopefully everyone remembered to download their documents before the system shut down. Whether you used it or not, it's also available in the new system. We can save documents right here by clicking the Upload button, and it supports various file formats, but we are limited in storage. So for recording speeches, it's best to find another way to store them, such as YouTube, or we'll fill up our storage pretty quickly. And that's the core of Basecamp. We've got our footing, set our GPS, and we know our route. Now let's dive into our path itself. So lace up your hiking boots, start your fitness tracker, apply some sunscreen, and follow me as we embark on our journey down the path. When we first log into the path, we land on the overview page, unless we've already been in the path, in which case we might see a different screen. For example, we'll see the resume button next to the pick up where we left off header. Clicking this takes us right back to where we last were. Below that, we have the levels. And clicking the arrow next to level 2, we see all check marks indicating that level is complete. If a check mark is grayed out, it means we've looked at the project but haven't completed it yet. One thing to keep in mind is that people often explore multiple electives before choosing one. All the electives we open will show up here, but each path only requires a certain number. If we have too many electives selected, it might prevent us from marking the level as complete later. So always deselect any electives we don't plan to finish to avoid this issue. And as we enter the path, at the bottom, we see the same resources we're used to from the old one. We can download our project checklist, access the evaluation form again. They really make those easy to find, don't they? And more. We also have the option to download our path. Now, for working offline, we can print it, though I wouldn't recommend printing it unless you're at a corporate headquarters. Paper and ink can run out fast. Instead, saving it as a PDF for offline use is a great option, especially if we know there might be a system outage, as happened when this version launched. I downloaded my path to keep it accessible and continue my journey without interruption. And as we navigate through, we find our standard pages. This works just like any other web page navigation. No more side-to-side scrolling or other complexities that made the previous pathways so difficult to use. We also have the option to set trail markers by being able to bookmark the page. At the overview page, a bookmarks list is created for us, and this makes it easy to return to any page quickly for future reference. Again, a quick show of hands. How many people remember the pre-assessment and post-assessment in the old pathways? All right, a second show of hands. How many people just checked number 3 on the pre-assessments because you weren't entirely sure how to answer? Well, in the new pathways, we now have know and wonder. Know is what you already know about the subject or purpose of the project. For example, what do I know about a question and answer session? I know I should have a solid base of knowledge to answer questions at the end. Wonder is what you haven't learned about the subject. For a Q&A session, I might wonder, how do I handle questions I don't have answers to? This is something the project aims to teach us. Now, there are some small internal navigation features like these flip cards. Simply click them and they turn to reveal additional background and detailed information about your path. And as we move through pages, it's a smooth, natural, web-based progression. There are also some internal tabs. While it was mentioned that isn't a lot of internal navigation, these areas in these paths are quite intuitive and quite straightforward to access. Clicking before or after opens additional information which can be reviewed as needed. And of course, there are informational videos. While videos existed in the original pathways, they were often hard to load, control, or stop. Frankly, they were nearly impossible to navigate. In an effort to improve the navigability, accessibility, and versatility of pathways, they've introduced a more advanced video player. By advanced, I don't mean a more complicated to use video player, but rather with more options to suit our needs. One key goal of the new system, as stated by Toastmasters International, was to enhance accessibility for people with disabilities. And to support this, they've added a transcript function, which we'll explore here. When we load the video, we see various icons along the bottom. Naturally, we click play to start the video. We also have multiple speed options. So if you're the type to speed things up, you can do that. I know someone who listens to podcasts at 1.75 speed, and when their headphones are shut off, it's like a squirrel that's trying to teach me about true crime. But when we first see the transcript, it does scroll in sync with the speaker, allowing us to read along as they talk. Now, there's also an option to enable closed captioning at the bottom. Some might think this is redundant since we already have transcripts, but if you don't want the transcript running, you can still use closed captioning. Plus, closed captioning has the added benefit of being able to be moved around the screen. And this is important because in full screen, the captions wind up appearing in the middle. And we can easily drag them and place them wherever is more convenient for us. But back to the transcript, we see it keeps time with the video's audio. Note, there's no sound in this video. You're not missing anything because I didn't want to enable it so we could hear this presenters. However, real-time reading isn't all the transcript can do. Show of hands, how many times have you watched a video, missed something, then grabbed that time-lapse bar at the bottom, dragged it back 10 seconds, only to go back too far, and then back again, and then you're caught in that forever loop of trying to find your place? Well, the transcripted lines are actually hyperlinks that jump to specific points in the video. If we click a line here, it jumps back to that part of the video, letting us quickly pick up where we left off or jump forward if needed. This enhances the overall usability of the videos and pathways. Pretty incredible, right? My advice, even if you're not reading the transcripts, use them as a navigation tool on their own. And of course, you can still choose your speed and learn from the chipmunks if you'd like. Next, we reach the review and apply section. I want to highlight this page because there's something important to keep in mind. If you enter any information in these boxes, you must click save. You can't just navigate away from this page without saving, or your entry won't be logged. Imagine writing an entire paragraph or even a novel throughout your path only to return to this page and find it blank. So always click save. And as we approach the end of the journey, we reach the complete your assignment page. Here, we've reviewed the project now and are ready to deliver our speech. This page includes our project purpose, project overview, and a list of tasks needed to complete it. We also below have something great, which is the ability to add your own tasks. For instance, if you want to challenge yourself and do your project without notes, or you can add that as a task. Or if you want to focus on making eye contact and engaging with the room, add that as well. You can add anything and save it, customizing the tasks to meet your goals. And you can return to those tasks later and check if you accomplished them. If not, you can ask yourself why, helping you stay accountable, keeping track of your tasks not only mentally, but also logging them here. And of course, as we continue our ascent to the peak, we come to the Complete Your Project page. We're almost there. But what does it all mean at the completed project stage? What do you know, wonder, learn? Well, first, we'll notice the familiar know and wonder from the beginning of our journey. But now we also have learned. Learned is the new equivalent of what used to be the post assessment in the old version. Instead of assigning yourself scores like threes in the first round and fours and fives later, we're now asked to make a bold statement about what we learned. This could answer your wonder statement or even contradict your no statement. For example, I might learn that I wasn't fully prepared for questions, or that when I can't answer a question, I can still confidently tell people I'll get back to them later. Know, wonder, and learn. These three components are crucial for self-evaluation after completing our projects. This self-reflection is just important, if not more so, than getting feedback from others, because it helps us continue to grow. And as we move down, we see our speech log again. And if we've already filled out parts of it elsewhere, they may already be populated. Completing it here will update other areas of the site as well. It's much the same process as before. Title the speech, select the club, and so on. And finally, we've reached the summit. We're ready to complete our project. The steps we were supposed to complete are displayed here. And at the very bottom, the apex, the peak, the big red button, complete my project. And that's it. Plant your flag. Once checked, it's posted to both Basecamp and Club Central. How great is that? VP heads, we no longer need to wonder why a project is marked as complete but isn't reflected in the Distinguished Club program. One thing I'd encourage for those in club leadership roles, you may have noticed that any role can approve a level completion. I urge you to ensure that you're using a hierarchy to do your approvals, starting with your VP of Education, then your president, secretary, and so forth. This prevents any confusion as to who should be approving and what's been approved, just in case someone's keeping track offline as well. Keep it streamlined, keep it efficient for your club executive committee. Back at the trailhead, the overhead view page, I had mentioned bookmarks. Here, you can find shortcuts to quickly get you back on track if you haven't finished your journey. Any you checked as bookmarked will show up here. And when it's time to exit, no more logging out of Basecamp to get back to the main page. Just go back to your dashboard here, and it takes you right back. And then from there, you'll find more navigations in the top right dropdown on the main page. But what would our journey be without a glimpse into Basecamp Manager? Show of hands, how many people played in the old Basecamp Manager? And how many people have played in the new Basecamp Manager? The new Basecamp Manager does mirror the old one with similar features. It still has 4 tabs, much like Basecamp itself, starting with approvals. This is where we manage approvals, both completed and pending. Our pending approvals show up here ready for action, and once approved, they're marked accordingly. Next, we have Member Overview. And this shows a list of members and their current credentials, including their current path level, highest achievement, and the last speech they delivered. We can easily sort the list by columns like last speech, for example, making it easier to track inactive members. Our third tab is Paths in Progress. Here, you can see which path each member is on along with their progress through each level. If a level is completed, it's marked with a green check mark. And clicking on a member's name, which were all blurred for privacy, takes us to their detailed progress, including if they're using the speech log function, their speech titles and completion dates. And of course, recent activity shows the last 60 days of activity within the system, including submissions, approvals, and completions. Many of these can also show up in our notifications. To access notifications, click that little bell icon in the top right, and here we see outstanding notifications such as level completions or tasks needing attention. Clicking on a notification takes you directly to the related task. And if we click View All, it opens a more detailed view. But keep in mind, these notifications are not just limited to Basecamp Manager, but include our personal pathways as well. Clicking Open takes us to the next logical step in a project or path. For example, if I clicked Open beside a Level 1 completion, it would take us to the beginning of Level 2. And now for a pro tip. Go to My Clubs in the top right dropdown. As part of our exploration through My Clubs, we were able to look at a member's individual profile. And navigation ultimately looks similar to viewing our own profiles, and we can see what the member is working on. Here we see basic details about the member. Further down, we see their paths and progress. The next tab contains achievements, where again, learning feedback will be similar to our own profiles. However, now as a Basecamp manager, if we click the certificates on their profile, we can load, download, and print any club member, enabling you to print or present it in any club achievement recognition program. This was initially a struggle early on, as a lot of clubs like to print their members' certificates and present them during recognition ceremonies. We've all talked about recognition and its importance as part of club and member engagement. And it wasn't until last November this feature launched, and I think many VPEs will be quite happy to see it. And of course, as was alluded to earlier in the presentation, here is where we find those publicly posted feedback badges. Members' badges attained are shown here and are viewable by any member, not just Basecamp managers. And this area is also where we can give and request feedback, right from a member's profile. Click it and send them feedback or request it from them. I hope this presentation has shown you that the new pathways is much easier to traverse. There are a lot less sticks, bumps, and potholes, and you can travel pathways all the way from the trailhead to the summit and around Basecamp, all with a lot less missteps. So, start your trek today. If you have yet to walk to the new pathways, strap on your backpack and make the trip. Thank you for taking a walk with me today in a journey through pathways. If you have any questions, feel free to click the QR code, shoot them off to me, and I'll do my best to answer them or find you the answers. Back to you, Von Erich.